we're going to be diving into a topic that's not spoken about very much in the Latino community.
Emotional intelligence is just really how to build character and build the resiliency to not make hasty decisions.
I want to mention the 5 key elements to EQ.
Ultimately, you take an EQ test to understand and create a benchmark.
What's going on, Latin Wealth family? Welcome back to another episode. Super excited about today's episode because we're going to be diving into a topic that's not spoken about very much in the Latino community, which is emotional intelligence. All right. Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your own emotions and understand the emotions of other people. How many of y'all have a difficult time with that? Or maybe you feeling like, man, I can't even manage my own emotions, let alone understand somebody else's emotions. Well, we're going to dive into emotional intelligence today, what it means, textbook definition, our experiences, and some of the ways that you can improve your emotional intelligence. Let's get it. Boom. All right, Latin Wealth family. Episode today, all about emotional intelligence. Got my co-host, Carlos, in the building. How you feeling, man?
Blessed, man. Thankful to be here, enjoying my time in Dallas, and excited to jump into this topic because I've done my own, kind of investment into EQ, and so excited to bring this to the community. I'll start by giving the textbook definition, just to kick things off around emotional intelligence, or EQ as some call it. But EQ is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. I think those are all things we talk about on this podcast, right?
For sure.
And so really kind of honing in on emotional intelligence is something we're going to bring our audience today.
For sure, 100%. And you mentioned I want to mention the 5 key elements to EQ.
Yeah. So the 5 key elements to EQ is self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. I think these are all critical, and look at these as buckets where you have to build up, each one individually, and then they interact, right, with in kind of a formula, in a formula.
Right.
But, we talk a lot about just kind of maintaining even keel. And I think, Chris, you do a great job at that. So talk about, how you do that and, how you go about treating your feelings differently than.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think especially as a man, it's very important to remain even keel and not to operate out of emotions, right? I once heard a man that's too overly emotional is a dangerous man. These are people that make, they make bad decisions. Let's just call it for what it is. Like you can just pop on the news and people, acting up, doing crazy things in the world. It's because these people are acting out of emotions, right? And so what Carlos and I like to do, and even other successful people that we study, they quit treating their feelings as good or bad, right? Basically remaining even keel, having that stoic attitude, never too high, never too low. And I want to read this. Judging your emotions prevent you from understanding them, adds more emotions to the pile, and keeps you from being able to see the cause of original feelings. Understand, don't judge, right? Let me read that one more time. Judging your emotion prevents you from understanding them, adds more emotions to the pile, and keeps you from being able to see the cause of the original feeling. So understand more and judge less. So again, man, I mean, look, throughout just life, things are going to happen. Last week, we spoke about, the past couple of weeks, we've been speaking about like different things such as, what did we speak about last week? Topic that we hit on anyways, but remaining even keel is super important in all scenarios, and stress, that's what it was, dealing with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think Stress is inevitable, right? It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond. And so emotional intelligence is just really how to build up character and build up the resiliency to not make hasty decisions. One thing that I've really, in my journey, have focused on is spotting my emotions in books, movies, and music. Understanding how certain scenarios in, climatic events in movies, how I would respond, and identifying my reactions or my behavior to the character or how I would act differently.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective that you want to use music, movies, and books, and spotting your emotions in those people.
Yeah, and it's important to realize that we're all going through things. How do others respond, react? But I think in general, it's about having more self-awareness, as well as being able to have social awareness, right? That's really what I see, right? What I see in me, what I see in other people. Then there's the other aspect of the equation. It's what I do, right? What I do would be self-management from a personal competence, and then relationship management from a social competence. And so really breaking it down into those, into that quadrant of personal competence, social competence, and then what I see, what I do. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is that, giving some tips here that we can go through.
Let's do it.
First, you got to watch yourself like a hawk. Observe yourself.
That's big. That's big.
I think, looking at yourself as the main character in your life and your, what you're going through, but then having that third person perspective where you can see yourself and how you're responding.
No, I love that, because one of the things in our men's group recently that we spoke about, that's something I want to work on, is being more conscious of how I show up anywhere.
Yeah.
Whether it's like pulling up to the gas station or like the gym, you just never know who you're going to run into, right? And how you handle your emotions and how you handle yourself. People are going to see that. And you just never, my mind is like, I never know who I'm going to run into. I might run into Mark Zuckerberg, right? And, if I'm off that day, that could be a blown opportunity.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. So you just never know, who's watching. And I like that, watching yourself like a hawk, paying attention to your emotions, how you're reacting to people, and how you respond to people as well.
Yeah. And then from there, it's observing the ripple effect of your emotions. It's not just that moment in time, but it's over the course of
the effect.
Yeah.
Who does it affect? What's going to happen?
Absolutely. Right. And I think that's become the what I see and then what I do, right? Because those two are tied together. But jumping into this one, know who and what pushes your buttons. Chris, talk about that one. What you think?
That's tough. You know what I'm saying? Because the person that may push your button may be the one you married to. Maybe your family members, maybe your good friends, right? But that's where we can develop better emotional intelligence to understand, okay, this individual is pushing my buttons, and this is what they're doing to push my button. Let me figure out a way to respond to that or prevent it, I would say.
Yeah. And I agree. I think those closest to you are the ones that tend to, kind of push your buttons the easiest. And it's natural. It happens in every family, in every, group dynamic. Ultimately, it's about having self-awareness, right? Of understanding their emotions and yours, and figuring out that even keel path.
That even keel to be able to respond to them and like sit down with them and like, yo, are you pushing my buttons in this area? How can we need to figure this out?
Yeah.
Right.
And I agree. I think, definitely can speak to my own experience where people the closest to me, right, have done this. The next one's interesting because I think we all fall a trap to this. It's don't be fooled by bad or good moods. I think ultimately when you're too high or you're too low, you kind of make hasty decisions.
Yeah.
and ultimately those are the ones that have the biggest ripple effect. But uh, I think in general, understanding that data, understanding that you're in a good mood or a bad mood, and then having the guardrails and the communication skills to effectively communicate.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, look, don't be fooled by a bad mood or a good mood. It's, we've been saying it throughout the episode. Remaining even kill, and I think for me, it's when things don't go my way. My biggest thing is shifting my mindset from it being a bad thing or me being in a bad mood or having bad emotions to what can I learn from this? Like, what am I being taught? So it's either, I'm good or I'm learning. Those are the two options I give myself. I don't want to put myself in a negative mood, negative emotions, where now going back to number two, the ripple effects of my emotions. Now it's affecting my household, my wife, right?
Yeah.
So changing my perspective to it's going good or I'm learning. That's it.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think diving into the last one here, getting to know yourself under stress. This one is so key because I think this is really who you reveal who you are.
For sure.
And under stress, I know that my wife and family have seen me probably under the most stress, and they'd say that the calm, cool demeanor that I tend to show fades pretty quickly, and I've been working on that.
It's important.
It's something that I am trying to induce stress in good ways so that I become better at managing stress. But I think the point of this one is having self-awareness around how you respond and react to stressful moments.
Yeah, I like that because they say money reveals who you truly are.
Yeah.
But this is also reveals who you are as well, how you handle stress. So yeah, I think that's a great point that you bring up for sure.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, all of these are starting points to generating self-awareness, to build more emotional intelligence. Just like anything, you have to build up that muscle memory and you have to build up that practice. So I think it's important to create an emotional intelligence action plan to help you effectively manage the growth of your skill sets.
He said that emotional intelligent action plan. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for that and kind of getting into the solution, something that I've done talking about this, I've mentioned before that I've had therapists and executive coaches and things like that to help me kind of progress and me being a better human. One of the things that I've recently done, and I've done it multiple times, is I've taken an EQ test. And so companies like Talent Smart, and there's a few others, will give you a test with a score. And then from there, you can start to identify areas where you can improve.
Now, I want to hold that. I want to people out there like, man, a test. I don't want to take no test. Look, personality tests, emotion, EQ tests, leadership tests. These are all super, super important different things that you can take to not only improve yourself, but the people around you, right? And you'll get into the test right now, but I would even assume like you gave this test out maybe to some other people to take so you can understand them better and say, let me see your results. Let me see how we can communicate better. Let me see how you think, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a whole, psyche evaluation aspect to this to really understand. There's other tests like Myers and Briggs and things like that to help really understand the dynamics of, relationships and people and how they gel together. But ultimately, you take an EQ test to understand and create a benchmark, right? That's step one in really setting an action plan. From there, you'll evaluate your score. They look at 4 areas of kind of scoring, which is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. From there, you'll find areas of improvement. So step 1 is take the test. Step 2 is pick one skill and then start to make improvements in that area. Once you identify that one skill, it could be social awareness, relationship management, or self-management, self-awareness. Once you find that one skill, you want to start developing it.
Yeah. What was that one skill for you?
So for me, it was really about self-management. Self-management. I had self-awareness. I had really good social and relationship management skills, but self-management was where I lacked.
I think for me, it was definitely understanding other people's emotions, especially my perfect example. I use my wife a lot because we in the house all day together every day. But making sure that I am understanding of her emotions, right?
Absolutely.
And where she's coming from.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think, definitely an area where I've struggled as well. I think in general, understanding yourself is probably a lot easier than understanding others.
For sure.
But I think from there, once, you identify an area for improvement, you pick 3 strategies to start to build up that skill set. It could be as easy as, like I mentioned before, watching movies, right? Looking at characters and understanding, their self-awareness or their scenarios, how they're responding. If it's, social awareness, start people watching, right? Being active and engaging in dialogue where you're asking questions and actively listening. But ultimately, you got to put strategies in place.
Yeah, 100%.
Then the next piece here is something we've talked a lot about, which is finding a mentor or, a peer that can collect feedback and provide feedback for you. Just to say, here's where you are improving. Here's areas where you could focus more on. Ultimately, when you're building this up, you can get a bit of, when you're building these skill sets up, you can get a bit of false confidence. And so having someone to help you calibrate is important.
What do you mean by false confidence?
False confidence is you could be working on it and you could feel like you're improving, but
you're not.
But you're not.
You're going backwards.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Or you're over-indexing on confidence and not enough competence to understand those scenarios. I think for me, I'll give an example. Understanding, my spouse and what they're going through and being empathetic there is something that, from a man's perspective, we grew up in sports. It was like, move on, next play.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm continuously learning that with my wife and, other women in my life, it's about addressing the emotion in the moment, right? Letting the waterfall just pour, right, of what's going on, and then figuring it out. One thing that my wife tells me a lot is we don't have to fix it now. Like, I just want to communicate what's going on.
That's a whole nother podcast episode right there, man. Like, as men, we are so results driven. We want to fix things now. When there's a problem, we want to think of like 10 different solutions immediately. And some people are not like that. Right? Some people just want to be heard. Some people just want to be felt. And I think even with me, I have a small team that I work with. I'll ask them like, I'll ask them, how are you feeling? Right? Give me a different answer besides I'm just feeling good. Right?
Yeah.
Tell me a different word. Right? And that helped me with feedback on like, okay, how can I communicate with them better? Or even how can we work together better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately feedback is a gift.
For sure.
And finding someone that can be candid with you. The last step here is keeping in mind that this is all progressing.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, one day, 1% better every day is the key. If you're not working on it, then you're regressing, and just putting together this action plan, knowing that it's not going to happen overnight.
100%. I want to take a step back as we start to wrap up this episode. Maybe share with us in your experience, as a Latino. Did you ever see emotional intelligence growing up? EQ, was that a thing? I know for me, it was just like, thug it out, man up, don't show no emotions, wipe your tears, keep it going.
Yeah. No, that's for me the same. I grew up in, my father, he was in government, so he traveled a lot. He was always gone. Mom was at home. Mom was very much, feminine energy, very kind of contrast to what my father was. And so we just didn't talk about this, right? We didn't really talk about our emotions. We didn't talk about, just how to have a dialogue around our emotions. And I think that's something that even with my spouse, we're working on.
For sure.
And so to your point, like, didn't see it growing up. Not my parents' fault. I just think that ultimately this has become more of a spotlight in recent years. And I think that as a community, we have to be in tune with our emotions because, just in general, we are emotional creatures. So it's about finding that ability to identify and communicate your emotions.
100%. And look, the ability to manage your emotions and understand other people's emotions goes hand in hand with, again, everything that we talk about on Latin Wealth. I'm sure you use emotional intelligence when you're investing in the stock market.
Absolutely.
You just said before we hit record, you may be in the red a little bit right now. But having the emotional intelligence to understand yourself and to understand, what's happening and take a look at the bigger picture, right?
Without a doubt. I think, removing emotion out of decisions is critical, right? We see the day to day and paint the long-term picture from it. And ultimately, like, we suffer more in our minds than we do in the world.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Look, y'all, that's what we want to do on this show. We want to talk about the real stuff. We want to dig deep. I know one thing about the Latino community is we do a phenomenal job of, entertaining, phenomenal food, phenomenal, beautiful people. But sometimes we don't dig deep and talk about the hard things. And that's what we want to do on Latin Wealth, whether it's finances, investing advice, or improving your emotional intelligence, which is something that word, I don't even think I heard of that word until I was like 22, 23, maybe even later.
Yeah.
Like, what is that, right? So that's what we want to do. Come on here, talk about the hard subject, and hopefully y'all could, implement some of the things that we've learned into your life to continue to improve as a human.
Love it. I think, ultimately it's about 1% getting better every day. And hopefully this is something that will inspire you to progress. So appreciate you all tuning in.
Yep. And as always, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.